Wherever you're listening in the world, it's a pleasure to welcome you to IsraelCast, the podcast powered by Jewish National Fund USA, your voice in Israel. I'm Stephen Shalowitz, first reminding you that for over 120 years, Jewish National Fund USA has been the premier philanthropic movement for the land and people of Israel. While best known for planting trees in Israel, JNFuture contributes to Israeli life in so many ways, including community development in the Negev and the Galilee, preservation of heritage sites, supporting people with disabilities, and connecting high school and college students to Israel. To learn more and to see how you can contribute, do visit jnf.org. Once again, after all these years, hope you got it. It's jnf.org. Plus, if you haven't done so already, we'd love you to subscribe, rate, and review us, 5 stars, of course, wherever you get your podcast. And if you're enjoying the show, do share it with others as well. All right, as we record this episode, it's been 7 months and counting since Hamas's savage attack on Israel on October 7th. Since that day, Jewish National Fund USA has been at the forefront of helping our Israeli brothers and sisters. And here to share an update on JNF USA's work on the ground and to offer perspective on Israel today is Jewish National Fund USA CEO Russell Robinson. Russell, welcome back to IsraelCast for what I think perhaps is your 4th conversation here on the program.
Well, thank you, Stephen, for having me. And if I'm number 4 on this podcast with so many unbelievable interviews that you have had, it's one of my great looking forward moments for the next IsraelCast. So thank you very much for informing so many around the world on our work and the work in Israel and Zionism.
Well, thank you for that, Russell. And before we get started, because there are a lot of bases to cover, I should share we're recording this in May, the second half of May of 2024, and this marks our 7th anniversary of IsraelCast. We launched in May of 2017, so we're celebrating our 7th anniversary, and that's the other reason why we wanted to have you back, because you were our very first guest on the program, and I know you're not going to be our last guest. We're going to keep going here on IsraelCast as long as we can. All right, well, Russell, there are indeed, as I said, so many bases to cover, and really I want to start with the shock of October 7th. So talk about what Jewish National Fund USA immediately did and how it engaged its partners, of which there are many, after the barbaric attack, again, on October 7th.
So, it's an operational system that we've had at Jewish National Fund that has allowed us on October 7th and beyond to be able to respond in an unbelievable way. And if you were efficient on October 6th, if you were doing your work on October 6th, and if you were making things happen, it was operationally, sad to say for the crisis and the catastrophe that hit us, but operationally, we were able to move forward very quickly. And even today, we continued to make our impact. So on October 7th, I was in Israel. And when those horrific issues were happening and we started unfolding and seeing what was really the reality on the ground, by October 8th, you have to know that we had already started moving families out of the OTIF. We had already were responding because we knew these people, Stephen. We had been working with them for over 2 decades. These were our family members. And we had already had evacuation plans, not by any means did we expect would happen on October 7th, but for for the years before, and there was always an issue that we had to move people away, and they had to take 4 or 5 days of respite. And so we had those evacuation plans. So we were always updating them because we wanted to be efficient. Fortunately, unfortunately for the situation, fortunately for us and for the people, we were able to move over 30,000 people within 72 hours because we knew where they were, we knew where they had to go, we knew where we were going to be placing them. From that day forward, we opened a situation room in Israel. No one called the situation room. The situation room was making phone calls out to the evacuees, to the families, to the people, to the mayors, to the representatives, to the communities, and to the communities in which we were moving them to, and to the hostels, and to the hotels. So we were constantly, and our staff mobilized. And you have to, I try to explain this to people as well. Our staff in Israel, they have families. They were having family members being called up. Part of our staff was being called up. We have a high school in Israel. We had almost 200 kids there. We had losing teachers because they were being called up. They were facing all of the anguish that the people of Israel were facing, but they were making things happen on the ground. And that same professional staff today is not answering the calls, they're making the calls out, and they're really able to take the investment from the philanthropic side that we're able to do, and then really make it happen on the ground, because we work with a whole system of affiliates. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. People were already making it happen, and today we continue to do so.
Yeah, because one of the questions that I had for you, Russell, was actually how do you manage bringing support while in a crisis mode? And when this crisis is unfolding and nobody knew where it was going. But again, to your point, is that those relationships were so strong already that you actually knew whom to call and you knew how to operate and how to mobilize. And if you can just expand a little bit on that, on those really, really close relationships that have been
So,
fostered over years and years.
again, if you were inefficient before, you were going to be inefficient in the
Yeah.
crisis. What happened was when we were efficient. So Jewish National Fund, our operational model has always been, if we wanted to, we said, I always tell people, and I think on the first IsraelCast, we talked about it, that we don't do projects, we do vision.
Yeah.
And people have heard me say this over and over, because projects are great, but where do you want to go? What's your objective? And so we always had, what is our objective? Our objective was to bring 500,000 people to the Negev. So to do that, we were working with the people in the OTEF already and people all throughout the Negev. But to do that, so let's take working with people with disabilities. We knew that there are people with disabilities, and to move people to the Negev and to keep people in the Negev, you had to make, not everybody was exact, right? So you had people with disabilities and people and families in need. So always understand, if you're a family of 4 and one of your members of your family has a disability, you're going to move to the center of the country. And we don't lose one, we lose all 5 people because there's not the services for them. So we were already working with affiliates throughout the Negev in providing work for disabilities, not to reinvent the wheel. We didn't open up a desk and start hiring staff and working with disabilities. We found the organizations that were doing it. We funded them. We work them within our system. We were already working with people with young leadership, or working with young leadership communities throughout the Negev, the Macomb communities. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We had affiliates. So we were able to gather all of our affiliates, all of our system, and put them to work even in this crisis situation, to be able to get them to be able to deliver the needs that we had for the people on the ground.
You invoked Muss, the Alexander Muss High School in Israel, just a moment ago. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like on October 7th, October 8th, and where the school is today?
So it's one of the emotional stories. I mean, there's a lot of roller coaster stories. So
Yeah.
when you're there on October 7th, our kids on Muss were in Jerusalem. If you remember that day, 7th and 8th, there was all the reports of over 1,500 terrorists that infiltrated Israel. And whether they were in Ofakim, whether they were in Sderot, and there was reports, are they in Tel Aviv? Are they here? Who were they? Where are they? Now our kids in a bomb shelter in Jerusalem. We have to get them back to our campus in Hod HaSharon. And again, utilizing our affiliates on our staff, and one of our members of staff who was just came off of working, being in the IDF. And so we put together a convoy, brought our kids back home to our Hod HaSharon campus. Now these are 16 and 17-year-olds, Stephen, who are coming from Jewish day schools and non-Jewish day schools, who are coming for a semester abroad, who some of them had not had B'nai Mitzvahs and now are experiencing 4,000 years of history and experiencing in one day the realities of Israel as we never could have imagined. So first off, if you feed them, I found out teenagers get very happy. But the next day, what are we going to do? So we gathered them together and we told them, listen, we're not sure what tomorrow is, but we know that there are injured people, there's people in the hospital, and the young 16, 17-year-old American kids asked us, can we package some packages to send to the people in the hospital? So we started getting shampoos and candy, and they organized themselves, 190 of them, and they packaged over 3,600 bags, and they sent notes in them to the people who were in the hospital in Beersheba. Then they kept talking about more, but they wanted to do fundraising. So this group of young people, 16, 17-year-olds, in 24 hours raised $250,000. Now on October 12th, 13th, 14th, we realized we couldn't keep them in class. We had to send them back home. We were losing teachers who were being called up to the Army. We didn't know what tomorrow was. For security reasons, we had to send them back. Now, remember, the airlines all canceled. So we had to charter a plane to go to Italy. Now, we had to tell these 16, 17-year-olds who had come for 18 weeks, Stephen, that they only could take one suitcase home and they had to leave a lot of their clothes behind. They didn't leave them behind. They washed them. They folded them. They put them in stacks. Girls, boys, socks, blouses, shirts, pants, with notes, because we told them that in their dorms, we were going to be taking evacuees that were going to be coming and living in our Muss High School dorms. On their own. No adults telling them. They did this to their clothes. They left the notes there for the people coming and said, we love you and we're with you. If that doesn't tell you that the future is in good hands, nothing will. Now, a couple of months went by, we had the evacuees there, and then we started getting calls from the kids, from the parents. We want our kids to come back to a high school. We were signed up, and we started the first group with over 100. And today, at Alexander Muss High School in Israel, is over 110 high school students that are going there for semester abroad. Our third group already since the war has began. And this summer, we're looking at 250 kids coming. And for next year, we're already planning that we're hoping that our classes will go up to the 2,500 a year. Now, the importance of this is that if you are worried about what's happening on college campus, Alexander Muss High School in Israel is the answer. If you're worried about the future of the American Jewish community, Alexander Muss High School in Israel is the answer. If you're worried about our Jewish continuity and our leadership for tomorrow, Alexander Muss High School in Israel is the answer. So you want to invest in an ROI, a return on investment far beyond your life, invest in our kids coming to Alexander Muss High School in Israel.
Russell, I don't know how to follow that up with a question, which might even seem mundane, because again, that's the most beautiful story, truly, how these kids came and galvanized themselves and really showed the true spirit of Achdut.
I have to tell you, because I just got back from Israel 2 days ago.
Sure.
And we had the Minister of Diaspora Affairs come visit our school. They wanted to meet these young people, right? And so we had these 4 teenagers, non-Jewish day school, coming from public high schools, 16 years old. So they were given what they were learning and what they were doing. Now, remember, it's an abbreviated. We can't take them everywhere, and they're under the system that But there was no complaints. And so at the end, I said to them, "Okay, so what do you say to somebody like me, a little bit older than you, the teenager, and what do you say to a Jewish organization? What should we be doing for you for tomorrow?" And this young 16-year-old girl looked at me with the Minister of Diaspora Affairs in the room, and she said, "Keep this program going and bring more high school kids to Israel. I was Jewish, but now I'm a proud Jew." So, wow, if that doesn't make, everything that you work for and the roller coaster that we're in say, there is tomorrow.
Russell, that's a drop the mic moment, isn't it?
It absolutely was. It was one of those things, sometimes you're away from your family, you're away from you're tired, you're getting complaints, you're hearing the oy veys, you're dealing with all the situations, and then the 16-year-old girl can say something like that, and you know what? It makes it all say Diana.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, listen, let's talk about some other aspects of Jewish National Fund's work in Israel. And again, thank you so much for sharing that. Truly, truly such a gripping story there. After the initial crisis, because we've been focusing a lot, there's a lot of focus in the media on the formerly called Gaza envelope. Now it's called the Israel envelope, those communities that are just outside of Gaza. but we can't forget what's going on up north. And Jewish National Fund USA has so many partnerships with small businesses up in the north. And if you can just share some of your thoughts and some of the work that JNF USA has been doing with those small businesses to really keep them going, to give them not only economic support, but also emotional and spiritual support as well, because many of them have had to evacuate too.
So, it's a great story and reality about why we do things. So we started a small business association in the western part of the Galilee because we knew that small businesses was an important, listen, it's over 80% of the employment, and it's in the tourist industry and so on.
Yeah.
So you got to understand, first off, who are these small businesses? These small businesses are sometimes 1, 2, 3, 4 people, a winery here, a person running a bed and breakfast, a person making some pottery, a cup, or for tourism. And to be part of our small business association, and I say to Stephen because I want people to understand, it's not us giving them anything. They are also participants. They each pay 400 shekels a month dues. Now, for some of the companies, that's a lot of money. And they monitor themselves. So if you're supposed to be open at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're open at 8 o'clock in the morning, your bathrooms are clean, and then, by the way, 3 strikes, you're out for a year. And even if you want to come back, you got to wait a year because we want quality service and so on. So now you have a war. These businesses are going to be out of business. There's no tourism. There's nobody. But there's Jewish National Fund USA. And so we started a program of packaging packages for evacuees, for soldiers, for people in the hospital. You don't have to know any of them. They will know you. You go online, you order a box to be sent, you send a note. It's 180, it's 360, it's $500. You can choose the size box that you want, but all the product comes from our Small Business Association members, and even businesses down in the Israel envelope who would have been out of business. Was a guy who manufactured socks, a small manufacturing of socks. And we bought out his factory, all that he had in supplies, and so they're in those boxes as well. So we're trying to help all the businesses. We have sold over 13,000 of these boxes. Now, we're keeping these businesses in business. Not only do you get to deliver something to somebody and say, we're with you. So go online at jnf.org, order a box today. Again, you don't have to know anybody, but they will know you. Order it. It gets delivered to them with your note, with your name. And we're keeping that small business in business. And that is the Jewish National Fund connectivity that is so important. And I have to tell you, Stephen, you have to talk about the North. I just got back from Israel. It's a ghost town. It's not just Kiryat Shmona. You got over 100,000 refugees, evacuees. Yeah. And I want you to understand where they are. You say, well, they're in Tel Aviv in a hotel. In a hotel, a family of 4 or 5 in one room, no job, no income. So the government will give you 80% of what your salary was. But most of these people who lived in that area were not only salaried employees, they were earning overtime, which the government's not paying you. So not 80% of your salary. You've really lowered it to about 40% of your salary. And you still get your home.
Yeah.
And you're still taking care of those bills, even though you're sitting there. And your children, imagine, I don't know about your family, but I don't know about my family living in a 1 square room, for over 72 hours, much less 8 months. And imagine the depression, the stress, and all the things that are going on there. And children, the uncertainty of tomorrow. And that's the humanitarian crisis that's going on in Israel and up north. And I was sitting up at Kfar Galilee, literally on the border with Lebanon, just 4 days ago. And you looked over at Lebanon and you see the buildings there, Stephen. Those buildings were buildings full of Hezbollah, people wanting to shoot, people wanting to kill. But what was on the hilltop was our new housing that was developed in Kibbutz Menara. There was people's homes that are evacuated today, people who were looking at the people of Lebanon every day thinking, I hope that they believe in peace. But our people on those housing sites in Kibbutz Menara were working, raising families, having their children play in parks, praying for peace. No threat to Lebanon, no threat to anybody. trying to build a tomorrow, and we cannot forget them. That's why we have built a Reimagine campaign. This morning, I'm on the call. I'm on every morning with the people in the North. We are thinking of tomorrow today, and we're building for tomorrow today.
Russell, I want to go back to those gift boxes because I want to direct all of our dear listeners around the world to go to jnf.org, and then they can navigate and click on shop. And then that is going to take them, because I'm looking at this right now, they can plant trees on the left, and we hope people plant trees. And then on the right, it says Israel support packages. And that's where our listeners can go, again, to buy those packages. It makes such a wonderful gift, doesn't it?
It's so simple. You go in, click on 1, 2, 4, 500, whatever it is that you want, and you get to write a note. And I have to tell you, I meet people all the time, and they see the notes, and the notes from a Schwartz family, right, in Peoria. And they said, I don't have an address to write them back. Now, by the way, you can put your email or anything you want if you want to give it to people. But they said, can you tell the Schwartzes in Peoria, thank you? Can you tell the Rosenberg? Can you tell the Smiths? Can you, there's by the way, it's not just for our Jewish viewers. There's a whole group from Georgia, from a church, that every member of the church went in and ordered a box and had it delivered. So again, you don't have to know anybody, but they will know you.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely beautiful. And we encourage really everybody to go on and shop till they drop. Then let's talk then, Russell, about the Israel envelope. And what do you find these communities still need? Talk about those living within and beyond that 7-kilometer border. And if you can share with our listeners what that 7-kilometer border is all about for those that might not be familiar with it.
So the government of Israel, you have to, bureaucracy always said something. They have a 4-kilometer, and then they have a 7-kilometer. And so if you're within the 7 kilometers, inside the 7 kilometers, you don't get funding for safe rooms to your home. It's a whole complicated. There's 800 homes, for instance, in the Eshkol region, one of the regions right on the Gaza, that have no safe rooms. So they're about $150,000 to add a safe room to your home. And these people can't afford that. And are they going to bring their families back and not have a safe room? Then you have people that were moving back, and they have to make a tough decision. Listen, we met with people from Kibbutz Re'im. It was a kibbutz that had damage and death. It had people raped and killed and murdered. And the community's sitting there, and they've been living in Tel Aviv now, and they want to come back. It's not just about rebuilding their homes. Imagine you have to look at your children, and then you have to look at yourself and say, do I do it now? It's my home. I want to be there. It was 95% heaven. That day turned it into 100% hell, but I want to move back. So they have a lot of conflicting emotional issues, and we're helping that out also by bringing everybody working in mental therapy together to make sure that we're providing the resilience and the therapy for these families as well. But I'm sorry to say, it's not going to be something that's going to be cured in a year or 5 years. It's a lifetime of crisis that was caused by this horrific attack. Children that don't deserve that, when they hear something drop on the floor, shake. They're going to shake every day. They're going to jump every day of their life. And that's a crime of humanity that also should be told. But we're helping them move back. And we've had over 3,500 American volunteers coming to Israel. Volunteers. Somebody told me, he said, I can't believe you guys have a construction company every week. How do you hire these people? And I didn't know what they were talking about till I figured it out. It was our volunteers. It's my friend Norm Weiss. He's 89 years old from Westchester, New York. I'm sorry, Norm, I told your age. But Norm Weiss worked a whole week, repainting and rebuilding some of the classrooms. That's my construction company. It's a group of women that came from Los Angeles together on our volunteer group. That's my construction company. It's a group of teenagers that came with their mothers. And we have more groups like this. It's college kids. It's our JNFuture. It's my own daughter who went to Israel, my own wife who went to Israel. That's my construction company. And I have to tell you, not only do I not pay them, this is a great construction company, they pay us, they pay their way, they're giving up their time, they come, and when I tell you work, They're repainting, replastering, they're replanting. Can you imagine the homes? Some of these homes haven't been anybody living in their houses for 8 months. So we're taking our volunteers to go there and literally clean up their homes. A refrigerator that hasn't been opened in 8 months. And so you just imagine how bad it could be. And they're wiping down the ovens and cleaning them, sparkling. So when the people walk home, it can't take away the circle of pain, but it puts breath in their chest. It's almost like taking a shower in the morning, getting dressed after a crisis. It's still, you're going to cry.
Yeah.
But you feel refreshed, and we're feeling refreshed because of our construction company called the JNF Volunteer Programming. Almost every week we have a group go online, sign up, come. We're already having them going all through next October and November, and we're going to start going up north to some of the communities there because we don't want them to feel alone as well. Some of it, Stephen, I got to tell you, they're doing unbelievable work building parks and rebuilding classrooms. They're doing unbelievable work. But the greatest work they're doing is when they get to give a hug to a person in from the Israel envelope or from the north, and that both know a Jew here, a non-Jew, a person in Israel gets a hug, and they both feel we're not alone.
Yeah, that's the most beautiful thing coming out of all of this, that we really are, as we say, Am Echad, Guf Echad, one nation and one body. Indeed. I mean, and Russell, let's also add that in addition to those like 5-day volunteer missions, I believe it's 5 days, if I'm not mistaken, there's also the day missions as well, because I went on one. So I was in Israel for 3 weeks. I did it myself. And I did go on a day mission, though, from out of Jerusalem. And it was just a phenomenal experience. We packed produce in the morning, and then we met with one of the evacuees in the afternoon. And that was really quite meaningful and special. So again, it's not only for the 5-day trips, but for those that just happen to be in Israel or want to extend, they can also do those day trips out of Jerusalem. Very well indeed. So Russell, let's talk about the future then in the Build Together plan. What do you want people to know about it, and where are you with it right now?
So we've already moved back almost 30,000 people into the Israel envelope. And that doesn't even deal with Sderot as well. It's moving back. And when I say moving back, again, we're also doing the signature projects to make it not just a place to move back today, but why do you want to even move there tomorrow? What are you talking about? Move there tomorrow? Yes, we're having housing sites that have been approved as part of our plan. Already another 50 new housing sites in some of these small communities. Housing sites so people can move down to the Israel envelope. We're building a sports complex in the region that's going to make it the envy. A person from Tel Aviv say they have that track and field, soccer, lacrosse. They have an indoor swimming pool down in the Israel. Wow. Because we want to make it a place that not only people are moving back to, they're going to say, look what I got. We're building resilience centers. Sadly, they're needed, but big resilience centers so that there's family therapy on one side and teenage therapy and senior therapy and couples therapy and family therapy. And we're taking care of those. We're helping out building young leadership programs and creating the differences and bringing business opportunities down there through our Israel Impact Investment Group, as well as building new business hubs so small businesses and startups can come down to the Israel envelope. So we're building a community center, and we're building a scholarship fund, a music scholarship fund, a $10 million fund we want to create so that every child from the Israel envelope, whoever wants to learn music and take music and needs a scholarship, will for the remainder of time be able to have, through our scholarship fund, that ability to learn music. At the Nova, you were there, Stephen. They tried to extinguish our people and our song and our dancing and our music. And we will show our enemy that we will keep singing and keep dancing. So we're building this endowment fund for music. We're building these signature projects that are down there. And you get to be part of bringing people back home. And then I'm going to tell you, in 5 years from now, you're going to have people complaining because they can't buy a home in the Israel envelope. And the greatest threat to our enemy in the north and in the south, yes, the IDF is a threat, and the Merkava tank and the F-16. But you know what really scares our enemy, Stephen? the greatest fear, the greatest combat that we can do, it's the sound of a child playing in a park. It's the sound of a music consortium having a group of young teenagers playing violin. It is the sound of a housing site being created or a community center being built. Those sounds show that we are here today and tomorrow and forever. That is the Jewish National Fund and what we're doing in our Build Together plan.
Right. I think it's fantastic. Russell, just a couple other bases before we push off, because I know you're a little bit pressed for time. You've been going to Israel. Again, you were in Israel on October 7th. You've been going back and forth ever since these 7+ months. I'm just wondering your general thoughts in terms of the mood, the feel, any changes that you've personally seen over these last 7+ months.
So it's a roller coaster. I can only describe it as a roller coaster of emotion. You know, soldiers get killed, soldiers get injured. That is not just one soldier. When you think of a soldier, think of their family, think of their friends who has to go to a funeral, or a soldier who just lost an arm, a leg, a soldier that is going to have to go through rehabilitation for the next 2 or 3 years. It's not a soldier, it's a family. This is not, we have to take away numbers and really multiply it out. There is a spirit, though, of people taking control in civil defense that we're helping them with in the community. People who are taking control of, in the north, there's a new group called 1701. It deals with the issue of the UN resolution 1701 that said that they were not a demilitarized zone. This passed by the United Nations up to the Litani River. And so it's a group of volunteers, hundreds of them, and I met with them in Tiberias, and these are young people that are creating their own reality for tomorrow in the north, and they asked us to join them. So when you say, what is the mood? There's pain, and there's promise. There is sadness, and there's a spirit of tomorrow. It's us here in America that are facing the roller coaster when we see things happening on college campuses, when we see things happening on the streets here, and the hate. This is Jew hatred. This is not a matter of Israel. It's a Jew hatred. Don't let it divide. It's not anti-Zionist. It is anti-Jew. So we're facing the roller coaster. They're facing the roller coaster. So that spirit, the sadness, the pain, the promise. And I could tell people that we're having our global conference in November in Dallas, Texas, and go online to JNF.org to our global conference in Dallas, Texas. It's the largest gathering of Zionist, Jewish activists that come together. 2,500 people last year in Denver. We're expecting more in Dallas, Texas. Come together. People from Israel, people from around the world are now coming and join. Yes, we will share pain, but we will share promise together. And we're going to celebrate tomorrow, because that is what the Jewish spirit is all about.
Russell, I couldn't agree more. And when I was in Israel, I had sort of this light bulb moment, and I mentioned it on a recent episode here of IsraelCast, that as much as I've been Israel engaged for all of these years, it was really an epiphany that Israel has always had trauma, and Israel has been built on trauma throughout its history and from its inception. However, it's what the Jewish people have done with that trauma and how we have built and how we've been able to move forward, even in light of that trauma. And I think that's really what you're talking about right now. That is heartbreaking, is everything is across the country. There is still that resilience and that hope and that drive to move forward and to really build once again. That's really what it's all about. I'm glad that you brought up the conference, because that was one of the questions that I wanted to touch on. We should share with our listeners, it's November 14th to 17th in Dallas. And our listeners can go to jnf.org and register there. I know you have some stellar people lined up already, like Michael Rappaport, and if that's not reason enough to be in Dallas from the 14th to the 17th, I don't know what is. So again, everyone should go on. What are you looking forward to at the conference?
So, again, I think we got great speakers. We're honoring a pastor from one of the top evangelical pastors who's been with us really with Israel, Jenison Franklin, and he's going to be honored at our Saturday night gala together with Saul Lieserbrand, our president, who's going to be stepping down, and we're going to be having a new president. I say that because those are human stories about people, and both from the Jewish and the non-Jewish, so that we get to have the spirit of who we are. We have Emily Austin, a young influencer, from Michael Rappaport to Rabbi David Wolpe, who's going to really do an unbelievable program on the future of American Jewry. He's one of the great scholars of our time today. I hate, I make it sound like he's so old, but he's a young, really one of the top Jewish scholars in the world, and he's going to be there. So we have a lot of unbelievable quality and people. We have people coming who's going to have a story about, it's the Theater Herzl and what happened there. And if you take back from the Theater Herzl, Stephen, he faced anti-Semitism, is why he even started the Zionist movement. And what did we get? We got an opportunity that after 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust, we danced in the streets of Tel Aviv on May of 1948. So you're going to experience that spirit. So the speakers are great. The program is unbelievable. The greatest thing you're going to get from it is standing there with your other 2,500 spirited Zionists and say, tomorrow, we believe in tomorrow.
Right. I've enjoyed every single conference, and I can't recommend folks, again, attend this one November 14th to the 17th in Dallas. Go to jnf.org and sign up. Final question, Russell. I want to ask you about the World Zionist Village, and if you have any updates that you'd like to share with our listeners about that.
So the World Zionist Village was something we've been working on for almost 5 years. That I'm going to say October 6th, we thought it was immensely important to bring our Jewish community together. Not about right or left, or not about religious or non-religious, or Israel, diaspora, to have a new conversation, a conversation about shared values and common destiny. It's a village that will have our high school in Israel, and it'll have a gap year facility, not for our gap year, for any gap year that wants to go to Israel, top quality, and to be there. A mechinot, which is the gap year for Israelis before they go in the army. So you could imagine that high school students from around the world are going to be together. And then you're going to have college kids before they go to college, 18-year-olds from Israel and around the world, together, their own program, but having an opportunity for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and Shabbats. And then we're going to have apartments for people who graduated, who wants to go into the high-tech world down in Beersheba. It's the high-tech world from Google and Microsoft and Facebook and EMC and so on. And so they'll be able to intern for 11 months in Israel, but every Shabbat go to one of our Makom communities for Shabbat dinner and build relationships. We're going to have apartments for seniors, to come and spend 3 and 6 months there, and a hotel for groups from Barcelona to Beersheba to Kiryat Shimona to Birmingham, Alabama, and on one campus to have this new conversation. So October 6th, we thought it was tremendously important. After October 7th, it is unbelievably important for us as a Zionist world, Jew and non-Jew, people who believe in life and tomorrow, and the Zionist vision of, yes, our ancestral soil, but I tell people on Zionism was the first time women were ever given the right to vote equal with men, was the first Zionist Congress. So if you're a women's rights person, thank you for being a Zionist. Or, celebrate Ethiopian Jewry, which was the only nation in the world that ever brought Black people in as citizens, not as slaves, Israel. So thank you for being a Zionist. So Zionists coming together for that conversation of shared values and common destiny. We're in the midst of our 22 acres of putting our master plan together. Our architects are putting it together. In the next year, our architectural plans will be done, and we're going to be breaking ground. And in 5 years or less, we're going to bring thousands and thousands of people together. That is just a place that is a quarter of a mile away from Abraham's well, a place in which 3,300 years ago, our Jewish ancestral story began in that ancestral soil of Israel, that monolithic religions from Christians and Islam and Judaism started. A quarter mile away, where that conversation was, where everybody used to have the conversation was around the well. We're going to have the conversation at the World Zionist Village.
I love that. By the way, Russell, I think that hotel is going to be filled to capacity. Can I have you pull some strings for me to get a room?
You got a room? Stephen, I'm going to tell you this. Because of IsraelCast, because of everything you do, and I mean this sincerely, lifetime suite available for Stephen Shalowitz anytime.
You heard it here first, folks. All right. On that note, we're going to leave it right there. Russell, this has been so inspiring as always. We want to thank you so much indeed for joining us on this episode of IsraelCast. We'll see you again for our fifth conversation, I guess. It'll be fifth conversation and counting. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right. And for more on Russell and this conversation, visit the show notes page of our website, jnf.org/IsraelCast. And of course, we do release new episodes of the show every other Wednesday. And just so you never miss an episode, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. Simply search for IsraelCast. It's so easy. And don't forget to rate and review us because that really helps with our rankings, which in turn make it easier for more folks around the world to find us. Or you can always enjoy the show by visiting us at our website. Once again, it's jnf.org/IsraelCast. Now, it takes a homo shop to put IsraelCast together. For that, we thank Vivian Grossman, Dara Shapiro, J.D. Krebs, and Ellie Cadron. Our editors are Jay Rothman and James Casada from Mirror Tone Studios right here in the very heart of New York City. And the music that you hear at the top and tail of the program is titled My Eden. It's by the very talented Rafi Malkiel from his album Water on the Tzaddik label. IsraelCast is powered by Jewish National Fund USA, your voice in Israel. For more info about JNF USA, do visit jnf.org. And if you'd like to write to us with story ideas or just to say hello, I know Russell would love to hear from you, and so would I. So do email us at israelcast@jnf.org. Meantime, I'm Stephen Shalowitz. Thank you for tuning in and looking forward to having you join us on future episodes of IsraelCast.